All right. Let's go. Record here. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Persuasion by the Pint. I'm Jonathan Taylor, along with
Sean McCool.
And Sean, we have a guest. Yes, we are on a Thursday. Normally we do this on a Friday.
Yes.
But we're running on our a Thursday today. Got something going tomorrow, but not a big deal.
Jonathan's being difficult. Kids.
Got a kid moving into his dorm room and tomorrow. So we're getting rid of one off the dole. Not necessarily completely off the dole, but
yeah. He'll still be texting for that Venmo.
Yeah, exactly. I got that. I need some
money. I'm going to the library.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Because every college town has a library.
Yes.
A bar named the library.
You know, when I was in college, we had a bar. Yes, the bar named the library. Yeah. That's intentional, right, Sean?
Yeah.
I mean, they intentionally do that because when
you and I went to the same library because
we
just didn't know each other back then. But
that's right.
Yeah, we were on the same street in Athens. So, all right. Well, let's bring our guest on because I think this is going to be a good show today.
Yeah. So I'm excited. We're going to cover a few different topics. One that really intrigued me on email subject line, and our guest is going to get into that. But the title of it, just to tease it, and maybe she's going to tease it even more because you're going to ask her that important question.
Yeah.
But I've got unconventional email design approaches that work every time. That's kind of a lame headline. So I hope your question gets a much better teaser than I just did. So we've got Carolyn Beaudoin. She is a seasonal. I got to ask her if that's Cajun. It looks like it's spelled kind of like a Cajun.
It's Canadian. It's French.
Oh, it's French. Okay. Well, French
Canadian.
French Cajun or French Canadian.
Yeah, that's true. Very different parts of the world, but yes.
Well, Carolyn is a seasoned copywriter and conversion rate optimizer working freelance, agency side and in-house. She's worked with some of the fastest growing brands on the planet, including LaunchDarkly, Resident Home, Glowforge, Nextiva, Shopify Plus. Now she is the co-founder and head of creative strategy at Boxcar Agency. It is a boutique conversion copywriting agency that helps founder-led B2B startups and scale-ups turn their websites and email marketing into reliable revenue-generating machines. She's best known as an instructor in Copy School of Copy Hackers, that's where she teaches several topics, including lead gen, nurturing funnels, seasonal SMS campaigns, copy validation techniques, and more. And again, you can find her stuff over at boxcar.agency. So with that said,
let's bring her on.
Bring her on to the show. Welcome, Carolyn.
Hey, so excited to be here.
That was a mouthful.
Man, crowd's going crazy. I just like you.
Yeah.
All right.
So I don't know why I assumed that you were that was a Cajun, French Cajun, not Canadian Cajun.
I mean, I think that's amazing. And I think, way back, there's probably a link somewhere in there between, French Canadian and Cajun. I'm sure there's a link. There's a link. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we're in the South, and Jonathan and I are SEC fans, college football.
That's right. Everything revolves around.
The EAU is big for LSU, like the Go Tigers, like they spell it with the EAU. So
that's right.
I can see how you get there, Jonathan. That's for sure. All right. Well, welcome, Carolyn. Give us a quick teaser before we get to our beverages, Carolyn. Give us a quick little teaser about something our listeners might learn today.
Yeah. So you should definitely stick around because you're going to hear about the unconventional email design approach that seems to break all of the email marketing rules specifically, but it can actually help you stand out in the inbox of your best fit buyers. And you don't need to hire a new designer to execute the approach.
Cool. Mm-hmm. That's good.
See, I should have just consulted with you before I wrote this lousy headline at the top there.
Yeah.
I mean,
just
building on it. Just building on it, Jonathan.
There you go.
Well, I mean, the word unconventional is a good word. I mean, that's a good
right.
good starting word. Like that's people want to know what that is. So
Yep.
I like that.
Yep.
All right. Well, this is our what we call what one listener called our juvenile beer talk section.
That's right. We like that. That's why we keep saying it, because we were like, oh, thank you.
That's a great title for the
a great
segment. We
title.
love it. Thank you. So what do you have brewing over there up in Canada?
So I have a beer called Jam Up the Mash
Jam Up the
by
Mash.
Collective Arts Brewery. I have to say I love this segment of the podcast because I love beer.
Nice.
Though I have never drank a beer while recording a podcast, and I'm a bit of a lightweight, so I'm a little bit nervous about this. But anyways, it's a sour. It's a sour, an acquired taste, as we were discussing.
Yeah.
But it tastes kind of like Sour Patch Kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that your go-to? Do you like candy? Is that the go-to Sour Patch Kids? And
so I actually don't have a sweet tooth, but if I were to eat candy, I would be eating Sour Patch Kids.
Okay.
Got it.
Because that's my wife's favorite. She loves Sour Patch Kids and sour gummies, all this stuff. I can't. Just hard for me to develop a taste for that. But
I like anything with sugar, anything at all. I just love it. So.
Yeah.
Jonathan, what do you have?
So I got a little Mexican cerveza going today.
Okay.
This is called this is a Mexico's, or it's the first Mexican cerveza. Wow. What a claim. Like
first ever.
That is the claim.
Can we fact check that?
Like that particular can is the first one ever? I'm not sure I understand.
So this is Victoria. I just like the art on which mine has more of a skull. It looks like one of these Buccaneers skull.
I'll hold it.
It's got the Buccaneer hat. Can you see this? And I don't know. I have to zoom in on that, but
oh yeah, you're way far from.
But it's a lager.
Cameras.
Should be very safe drink. I don't expect this to be overly sour. So we'll see. Nothing exciting. It looks. I was like, okay, Mexican lager, and they claim to be the first Mexican cerveza. So that gives them enough kudos to be on our show. So
yeah, I like it. Well, I've got on my end, I've had this one on the show before, and it was the only thing left in the beer fridge. Since I haven't made a beer run this, lately. But it's from Untitled Art. So we both got the art going, Carolyn. This is a barrel-aged red velvet cake pastry stout. So I don't know if you remember that one, John. This is the one that's like 18+% or something like that.
How long has that been sitting in the fridge? Because that's been a while back, right?
Yeah, it's been in there a couple months. It's been in there for a while. So it's probably getting more and more fermented by the day. It looks like a dark red wine. So you two may be doing the show yourself, because I remember I don't see the alcohol in here, but I know it was above 18%. So
yes,
we'll see.
That's a little scary.
Maybe like our guest last week, and I made
it'll just be us talking. Sean will be off like our guest last week. Actually, I think he fell asleep at the end and passed out on the show, I believe.
Oh no.
He just everything went dark, and I was like, dude, what happened? And I think his phone actually died, because I think it was on his phone, but
he did close his eyes once during the show, though, when he was.
He did. He was drinking.
He was just letting it wash over.
That's right.
Like,
he was going hard. He was going heavy with the bourbon, though. That'll
do it.
Yep.
That'll do it.
Yeah. So, well, let's cheers it up, and then we'll do a quick rating after that.
I just have to crack one.
Oh,
cheers.
We got to wait for you to crack. There we go.
All right. So we do a rating, Carolyn, 1 to 5 pints. You can use decimal points, whatever you want. Scores don't really matter. But what would you give this on a scale of 1 to 5?
So this is my favorite sour. So I would give it a 5, which I realize is probably a little bit generous. Like, really? 5? Yeah. I know.
We've had a lot of 5s lately.
Giving 5s out very generously lately.
Yeah.
On the show,
You know what? I'm just there. When I drink this, I'm like on the dock. I'm near the water. I'm out of my office.
So a little nostalgia involved with it. Yeah.
See,
Probably boosting the point.
See, that makes sense. If it's your favorite, if that's your go-to, then you should give it a 5.
Yeah.
That's
your
right.
Go-to, absolutely.
Yeah.
Our problem, Carolyn, is we have to find new beers like every
That's right.
show, and we're 365 episodes in,
I mean,
and we're running out of stuff. So
yeah, that sounds really rough.
Yeah.
Poor you. Poor you.
It's tough. Jonathan, what do you give your cerveza? The first cerveza of
The first Mexican
mankind?
cerveza lager. I will give it it's nothing special. I'll give it a 3.6, a generous 3.6.
All right.
That's all it gets.
Okay. I'm going to give mine. I don't remember what I gave it last time, but I'm going to give it a 4.9. Like, it's really good today for some reason.
Wow. Teetering on the edge.
If you like a port wine, the real kind of dessert wine, that's kind of what it tastes like. It's very much like a port wine, which I think I said that last time. But yeah, it's good. You're not going to have like 3 of these though. Like, one is enough. It's very rich. It's like eating the red velvet cake. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 4.9.
You gave it a 4.2 last time.
Did I? Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I don't even remember.
Like you're keeping track. This is like whose line is it anyway? It's like points don't matter.
We don't even remember what our scores are.
All right. Well, Carolyn,
yeah.
Show's over to you now. Go ahead.
Yeah, give us a little before we get into the topic. Give us a little background on yourself and your world, your life in the world of marketing and your own you got your own agency. So tell us a little bit about some of the work you've done.
Yeah. Okay. Well, where do you want me to start? Right? Like how
all
far
the way back from childhood.
Childhood.
Yeah, kindergarten. You started kindergarten, and we'll work our way out. So
any childhood traumas you need to get off your chest, whatever. Like,
I don't know. I don't. We only have an hour, right? I don't think that's it. No. Yeah. So
do mention the one thing we talked about before the show started.
Yeah. So
throw in all the really bad mistakes that you've made. Those are fun to talk about.
I mean, they are kind of fun to talk about.
They are. That's what I think. That's what people learn from the most, right?
Totally. Totally.
We're supposed to.
Yeah.
Some of us.
I mean, I think so. I love talking about mistakes, and cool. Yeah. So I've been around for a decade. I mean, in terms of like in the copywriting world, I've been around for a decade. I've been around longer than a decade in the world, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Obviously, because I'm not 10.
That would be even more awkward, especially if you're drinking a beer.
Underage. I mean,
you'd have a lot of problems there.
The legal drinking age in Canada is a little bit lower, but it's not that low.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I've been around for a decade. As the bio mentioned, freelance, in-house, agency side, all of the things, right? But the way that I got into this was actually I am a classically trained opera singer, and
that's cool.
Yeah.
Bizarre, right? You're like, cool. Weird. How many have you ever?
It seems very straightforward. I mean,
yes,
opera singer, copywriter. Yes.
Yeah. They sort of laid that out. They laid it out for us in grad school, right? They were like, first you'll be an opera singer, and then you'll be a copywriter, and that path. No, so yeah, I was freelancing on the side, literally to pay my bills as an opera singer. Spoiler alert, you do not make a lot of money as a classical musician.
No.
What? I know. So I was copywriting on the side. For me, like, it seems like a weird jump, right? As you mentioned, like, oh yeah, totally straight line, right? From point A to point B there. Very clear. For me, though, it did feel somewhat clear. I worked with words as a classical musician, and I work with words now, which is a wild simplification of what we do, right? But bigger than just working with words, it's also the understanding that the right words delivered at the right time to the right people, it changes things. It changes hearts. It changes minds. It changes behaviors. It can elicit behaviors depending on like how you're delivering that message, obviously. And for me, that is the very clear connection between these two seemingly different career paths.
Yeah.
So when you were doing, I assume with opera, like it's almost like acting. You have to really understand what you're singing to bring that emotion across, similar to how you might have to really understand your avatar or whatever in
Yes.
copy. Is that kind of the
Yes.
connection you see?
Yes, totally. That is a very, very fair assessment of what I was doing when I was an opera singer, right? You have to get into the character. You have to understand, like many of the operas that are out there and regularly performed are based on novels, like classical novels. So then you go and read the classical novel, you understand what's going on there. You have to like think about these characters. And also when you're bringing a character to life, you realize that it's not just about, this sort of like finite thing that we see and it happens for 3 or 4 hours, depending on how long an opera is. And then like this, they have to be a full character, right? So there's this whole like inner world that happens behind the scenes, and that all has to be there in your brain when you're on stage. Kind of the same way as a copywriter who really has to create this whole world around the copy that they're writing, right?
Yep.
You have to understand the product. You have to understand the avatar. You have to understand, like, they aren't just, I think about this particularly in B2B, right? Like when you're selling B2B, you're still selling to humans who have all of these different things going on in their life. They don't just magically shut that off. It's not Severance or something like that, right? That's an Apple show, yeah, where they just like go to work and don't know what's going on in their real life. It's bizarre if you've not seen that show, but it's really cool also. We're full human beings, and you have to have that in mind when you're writing copy for humans, which that's who you're writing for.
So I'm curious about the opera. Did you do like foreign language, or did you do English, or both?
Yes, all of the above. English, was a favorite because it is my native language, despite having the French last name. I actually don't speak French.
Hey, you don't even have much of a Canadian accent.
Don't I?
No, not really. Not so far.
This is the first time I've heard that. Maybe, after I drink a little bit more.
Yeah. The O's will start coming out.
Yes, you'll start a boot and all these classic signals that I am Canadian.
All right, so I'm really tempted to put you on the spot and ask you to sing us at least like your favorite line.
I can't. So I will say that when I officially maybe once I drink a little bit more, maybe if I had the 18% beer, then I would do it. No, when I retired, I really did retire. It's so weird. I literally have not sung a note since I retired. I know, not even like humming around the house, right?
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a different show. We'll have to address that.
But. That's the childhood trauma and like adulthood trauma show probably.
What's your is that your favorite? Do you listen to a lot of classical and opera? Even though you're not singing as much anymore?
I enjoy it still. I wouldn't say that I listen to it any more frequently though than anything else that I might put on. Truthfully, I don't listen to a lot of music anymore. I feel like the weirdest former musician and like sharing all of my secrets now.
We got some issues there. We got
I know. It's a little hot in here.
I have to put on my coaching hat. All right, well, let's shift to copywriting because we're getting into some dangerous territory with her this past. So you went from opera, you're in copy. Kind of how did you end up with the agency thing, and then let's start transitioning into so you said you work in freelance to start to pay for opera.
Yeah. Supporting my opera habit.
Yeah. So how did you find out about copywriting? That's always interesting to me. Like, because it's a pretty secretive little thing until you find out about it. Then it's like everybody's a copywriter, but they're not. But it seems like it, right?
Yeah. No, that's so true. I heard about it from a friend or a colleague, I guess I would say, who we had done a portion of our master's together. She had left and gone overseas and was doing something else. And we were chatting and she was like, I remember you were really good at, I feel like this is the classic story, right? Like this is how copywriters become copywriters. I feel like you're really good at writing. You should look into copywriting. Is that not such a classic way to get into copywriting?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. And I was like, what is copywriting? Google.
Yeah, did you go through a certain school or guru or anything?
What is it? AWAI? Is that it? Is that where?
That's one. I think that's one of them. There's so many copywriting schools, ways to learn. I mean, I learned a lot on the job. I learned a lot, obviously, from reading. I mean, there's so many amazing books out there by really wonderful copywriters you can learn a lot from. I learned a lot from observing. I teach in copy school, but I also was a copy school student. And so
did you start in-house or did you do at an agency, or were you doing directly with clients?
Directly with clients. Yeah. Okay. Just like right into the deep end. I mean, I guess,
that's the best way to do it. Like there's a lot of people, they take course after course after course. And I tell them, like, if you don't get a client, it never sticks. Like you're not going to know until you are writing for an actual client that has money on the line.
Yeah. You have to like do the thing. You have to, and practicing on, I mean, not to knock, practice portfolio work. There's nothing wrong with practice portfolio work, but you're right. When there's money on the line, when your reputation is on the line, like you always want to do your best work when it's that level of
the energy is different, right? When you sit down to write a portfolio piece versus a client piece, like the energy is different. Like it just it's totally different. So.
And I totally leveraged my background as weirdly. Who knew that my opera singing? I mean, besides the links that I've drawn of like this is useful. I did leverage my background to gain my first client. Actually, it was a tech company provided ticketing software to theaters and like community theaters and high schools and like that sort of thing. So like Ticketmaster, but for like local community stuff. And I worked for them.
So you were able to say, hey, I understand your business.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they were really excited about that, actually. This very niche. Who knew? Who knew? Yeah.
Who knew you could niche as a community theater copywriter, right?
I know. Yes.
Niche within a niche.
Very niche. Very niche.
Very cool. So let's get into some of the secrets here that you've learned and you've picked up and you've crafted over the years. We'll start with what you said, and then we'll probably bounce into some other areas, but let's start with this unconventional email idea.
Cool. Unconventional email. I mean, okay, so I'm just going to spoil it and then we can dig in, right? We have to spoil it at some point. So I'm talking about plain text emails, and depending on what industry you're working in, if you're working across industries, or this may be unconventional or it may not be unconventional, I've written for a lot of different clients and a lot of different audiences, industries, etc., like B2B, B2C, B2E, D2C, SaaS, e-commerce, online courses, services, pretty much the gamut. And I've tried plain text in literally every single one of those contexts. I think that where this is most unconventional is e-commerce.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Right. Like,
they're all about their pictures and product photos. And
And they're for good reason in some cases, right? Mm-hmm. Like the media imagery, it can sell the outcome that you're selling in sometimes a better way actually than words, or like it at least complements your copy. But I will say that my experience with e-commerce, this is where I'm really coming from of an unconventional email design, is that email by nature is natively a very conversational channel. It's the place where you're emailing your colleague for a project update. I mean, unless you're on Slack, we'll leave that aside, right? Yeah. Email, that happens in email too. It's where your mom is emailing you maybe about, the menu for the weekend with the family. There's all of these very personal important conversations that you pay attention to. And then there's your promotional tab, right? Yep. And that's where all of the email marketing goes. And it looks like when it comes to e-commerce, right? It all has this very standard in many cases look this very heavily designed image, product heavy imagery.
Mhm.
And when you think about it in that context, I mean, like a couple of weeks ago, y'all were talking about the paper email, which I freaking love, because this is kind of the same idea, right? This is like a low tech way to stand out in the inbox when everybody is zigging you zag, right? Like for e-commerce in particularly, when we think about what everyone is doing, these super product image heavy emails, you do something different, you are going to stand out in the inbox, literally by just doing something different. And by looking like plain text, by looking like the email that, your mom is sending you, your colleague is sending you, you're kind of, we have the promo tab in your inbox, but you also kind of have like spam filters in your brain, right? Where you're sorting and going like, okay, that's something important. This is not important. This looks like that. And we make decisions like that, coming back to the paper email, this idea of the small envelope, right? Nothing bad comes in that little small envelope. It's like a thank you note or like, yeah, it's the same sort of idea. It reminded me, actually, the paper email reminded me a few years ago, we got a letter in the mail. We thought it was a letter. It looked like a handwritten letter. It was, I think, a real estate agent like wanting to sell our house for us. But we read it. We read every word of it because it looked looked different from all of the crap that was in the mailbox. And this is the same idea, using plain text in this way to stand out by blending in to what we pay attention to in our inbox.
So I'm curious on some of the nuance of the plain text. So when you say plain text, are you still using HTML editor so that you can hyperlink stuff and track, or do you truly use plain text?
So I'm so glad you asked this because, so if we're going to get sticky about the definition of plain text emails, technically, to do a true plain text email, you would lose some of the capabilities that are important to businesses today in terms of their marketing performance, right? You would lose some of your performance data. But so when I say plain text, I mean, sometimes it is true plain text. I can think of at least one email marketing tool off the bat that we've worked in recently that they have, like we did a dedicated set of true plain text emails for that particular client. But usually we're talking about like low design, right? Like copy first.
So like like you would send from emails. Gmail, basically, right? So you can still hyperlink, you can still do all that kind of stuff, but
it's like light HTML design, basically, right?
Right. So it looks visually, it looks like text only.
Exactly.
Other than maybe the hyperlinks, but everything else looks, and some bolds here and there, stuff like that. But for the most part, it's okay. Yeah, I just wanted to. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure you can even send plain text, like you said, unless there's a very specific, platform that allows that. Almost everybody's gone to at least a low design HTML for tracking, if no other reason. I think open rates, all that kind of stuff. So So let's talk about like so subject lines. Like, I'm curious about how, if we're going on this idea that it looks like it's from a friend or from your mom, like, do you have any tips around subject lines? Or
I love subject lines.
Yeah,
I love subject lines.
Both like the words and like the actual format of the subject line. I'm curious to like your thoughts on both of those.
Well, I think we can start with one subject line that I think used to be good, and then some marketer spilled the beans, and now it's like, don't use it ever. It's the fastest way to end up flagged as like garbage, basically. Quick question.
Yeah. Yep.
No, like go in.
That one's been overused, I think.
Exactly. So, like I said, some marketer spilled the beans somewhere, and now you've ruined it, marketer, for all of the rest of us.
What's crazy though is I will still like just instinctively write that, not because I'm a copywriter, but just because that is what I want to. It is a quick question I want to ask.
It's the intention, right? It's the actual intention.
So then I have to like slow down and be like, okay, I can't say that. So what am I going to say instead?
I think the challenge too is that if you were writing a colleague, like coming back to this idea of like this much more conversational way of doing email marketing. If you were writing a colleague, you might write quick question in your subject line, right? So it's
yeah. So I'd probably do like, hey, comma, question, dot. And then I would, ask the question in the email. That's probably how I would do it.
Yeah.
The variation I would do.
Q for you.
And I think there's some industries like
that.
B2B, because I still use that with clients, like, or people in my industry, that I will say, hey, such and such, I will put like question for you or quick question. Yeah. I've kind of changed that up a little bit where I don't say quick question, but got a question for you, ...
Yeah.
And then, typically, but it's not going out. It's very specific to a certain, it's not blasted out to a whole industry.
Yeah.
I like what Carolyn said. She said Q for you. That's very millennial.
Yeah. Q for you.
It'll probably work for a very specific audience. Probably,
you probably wouldn't want to send
right?
that to boomers or financial people or whatever. But I could see a pretty large segment that would go for that for sure.
And now
what about like
ruined for I shouldn't have shared it.
We're not that popular. Don't worry. No worries. Like, what about capitalization, things like that? And subject lines. Do you do like lower? Like, I know some people do all lowercase. Some people like they try to get their punctuation right. Some people intentionally.
Brand dependent. That's totally brand dependent. Yeah. Some brands are like, have at her, do what you want. Those are rare. I love those brands too. They're so fun to work with because they're just so open to recommendations, and they're actually open to the some clients are like, I'm open to the recommendations, but then they're like, but actually we have all of these rules and we're not going to do that. But those brands are awesome.
I had a client like that. I was on retainer probably for like 6 years, and they just let me do whatever I wanted on the emails.
Awesome.
Like, I didn't have to like run them by for like, I just wrote them. I loaded them into the software. I sent them, and they were surprised when they got them, just, like everybody else. But that was a great client.
That's awesome.
And we made a lot of money, so that's good.
The best win of all.
That's why
right?
they didn't care. That's why they let me keep doing it.
Exactly.
So I have I need to ask a question on the plain text. So what is the thinking behind why that generates more attention than, your e-commerce emails? I think I know the answer to it, but, a simple plain text email as opposed to something that's got that is image based. And I think I understand, like, people are used to seeing a certain level of email in their inbox that they just click unsubscribe or delete or whatever. But I'm just curious what the science behind that or the study behind that is.
It looks different, right? So when we think, it looks different. It's straying from the norm. Our brain is trained to pay attention to what is different, right? So when we do something that's different, brain pays attention. Additionally, that sort of like idea of blending in with what we do pay attention to in our inboxes, like what we're already trained basically to pay attention to in our inboxes. It's sort of the pairing of those
pattern interruption. Exactly. Like you were saying earlier, just getting the paper email or whatever, it's different. It's something that breaks up the monotony of all the other commercialized or the spam stuff or the stuff that you just think is junk mail.
Totally.
That you're getting. Yeah.
Totally.
All right. So I'm looking over our pre-show email banter, and I see, so the top mistakes nearly every company makes with their subject lines, previews, and from names.
Yes.
Let's go through that list real quick. So what's the top mistakes?
Okay. So it's actually a long list. So let's just, we'd already talked about one quick question. Don't use it. Don't use it. Other ones that I've seen regularly that just don't work anymore, honestly. I'm thinking, actually, my brain's sort of in cold email. So I'm going to start there. ones that are just talking about your brand, give it all away, and there's no incentive to click in to that email. It's like, don't do that. Why are we doing that? What, like, your reader doesn't care about your brand, particularly in cold email. They haven't even asked to hear from you. So like, hook them, make them interested in what you're offering. Make it like, what's in it for them to open that email. If your subject line can't answer that, we have a problem. Like, go back to the drawing board, write some more subject lines before you send out that cold email campaign. The from name, forgetting that is an opportunity to build trust with your reader, right? How, again, I'm sorry, e-commerce, I'm picking on you, I feel like today, but how many e-commerce brands do you see that are just like brand name, name, right?
No personality. There's no person
like,
attached.
Way to look like marketing. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah.
Right? Way to look like marketing. There are a couple of brands that I can think of that occasionally break from that. I would say the norm is not breaking from that, but occasionally they will break from that, and it always stands out. Always.
Yeah. That's a good test. Like, I don't think most people realize like how subconsciously how quick they're scanning the froms. As like, most people think they're deleting because of the subject line, and I would say as many people, if not more, are deleting because of the from line, like the from email.
Especially when it's your brand name, right? You're scanning through, you're like, I don't care about that brand, don't care about that brand, don't care about that. Like,
or even like, oh, that's a brand email. Like, that's I don't have time for that today. I know they'll send me one next week, so I'll wait for that.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
But if it says from, Sarah from whatever, then that's like, that's a different thing, or, CEO, so if that's different, those kind of things. So, I think, so let's talk about preview lines. I'm curious of your thoughts around that, because I think people underutilize preview lines.
Oh my gosh, yes. This is it's such an opportunity. It's sitting right there. You have full control over it. It's like, it's an extension of your subject line. It's like the equivalent of, if we were to translate it to website copy, it's your headline and your subhead. Like, they're right there. And you would never just go, oh, forget it. Like, throwaway subhead. Well, you would never do that. So I don't know why brands.
It'd be like writing a book without a subtitle to the book.
Yes.
Like there's no, unless it's a fiction book, you're probably not going to have any nonfiction book's going to have a subtitle. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So how do you tie those together? And I'm also curious, like, do you write your emails first and then come up with the subject line, or do you write the email based on the subject line? Which comes first for you most of the time?
Oh,
I know it's probably both.
Yeah, that is definitely a chicken and egg.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I would say I write subject lines first, because it's the hook.
Really?
It's really like it's the hook. Okay. We can unpack that process a bit, right? Like, when I write subject lines, though, I also
There it is. You said process. I heard it.
She also said about.
Dang it.
Process. That's what that one gets every time.
Canadian card is revealed. My process, which I am kind of obsessed about process, but
you're a pro, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So my process is that I will write 25, 50, sometimes 50 subject lines, and then I'll go and write the email. It's fast. People think, oh, that sounds like so much work. It's not. Come on. You're exercising a muscle, and do
you just open up a doc and just start writing stuff, or do you set a timer? How do you do? Like, I'm curious.
Timer. I love my timer. This is my favorite copywriting tool. Exactly. Yeah. It is my favorite.
I went around like 5 or 6 cities. I worked for a national seminar training company one summer doing copywriting training. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I tried to teach people was like setting a timer to write as many headlines as you can in like 10 minutes. And people were always blown away how many they could write in 10 minutes. like when you put a timer on it, because it just forces you to start writing, as opposed to just a blank page with no timer, infinite amount of time, work expands to fill the time allotted.
Totally.
So if you put a timer on it, yeah, you can pump out. So I'm curious for you, Carolyn, like for me, when I write headlines or subject lines, mine tend to be in like bunches of 3 or 5 where they sound very similar. And all of a sudden a new idea fires in. It's completely different. And I'll get 3 or 4 kind of in that realm. Is that true for you? Or
yeah, that's pretty much it. I typically I'll aim for, kind of bunches of 3 to 5 subject lines or, headlines, whatever I'm working on, right? 3 to 5 of that typically follows a theme, right? Or like a starting sort of idea of like, okay, the beginning of these are all like, you can, or you should, or you shouldn't, or, that sort of stuff. And then I'll write 3 to 5 of them. And then I move on to the next.
Then you get all the W questions: what, when, where, why.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And then you like break out and you're like, okay, like feature, not a bug, or, bug, not a feature.
So does it like jump off the page when you hit it? Like you just like, or do you still have to write the email to really know which one you want to use?
That I write the email and then I'll go back. I mean, I really do, when we talk about process, I really do like to separate writing and editing. It's really hard, right? Like when you've written copy for a period of time, you have certain like muscle memory, which is great because it often, but not always, makes editing a little bit easier. You don't sort of fall into the same traps or like mistakes that you used to earlier in your career. But at the same time, your brain is also trained to edit. So you have to, like, I really, when I'm writing, it's like, okay, write and forget all the rest. So yeah, I go back to the subject lines afterwards, and then I'll typically edit a little bit. Like I'll grab a couple that I think are really good for the copy of the email, then final edits, and Bob's your uncle. Email done.
Yeah.
So how much do you use ChatGPT? Be honest.
Yeah. So you know what? I think that ChatGPT is a really powerful brainstorming buddy.
Yeah.
And when I say brainstorming buddy, I'm not thinking like, write me 5 headlines or, that sort of stuff. It's more like, sometimes, particularly if I'm writing for a brand where I don't have lived experience, like if I'm writing for a kids brand and I don't have kids. I mean, I was a kid once, it was a while ago, but and I want to sort of tap into like, okay, like what would this, we were talking about painting the picture, imagining that picture. I like to ask ChatGPT like, hey, pretend you're a videographer. Can you like start to create a scene for me where I, whatever I'm thinking about or trying to create. And that helps me start to get into that place. That's what I mean when I'm talking about brainstorming. Buddy. Yeah. How do you guys use ChatGPT? I love talking about this with
so I love ChatGPT for like research and some of that stuff. For actual writing, I like Claude a lot better. It's a much better finished writer.
Cool.
And plus Claude now has projects where I can take, if a client hires me and says, we want some more emails, I can say, well, give me your top 5 best performing emails of all time. I can load that into projects with Claude and it can analyze it. I can take their homepage copy and put it in there so that Claude understands the demographic and, some basic stuff. And it can get pretty darn close pretty fast, especially if I give it like my swipe file of best emails, right? So I've found whether you're using Chat or Claude, it's not the prompt, it's you have to give it example and framework. If you give it an example and a framework, it will do a pretty good job and get you 80% of the way there.
Cool. That's definitely what I've heard and seen too.
But as far as like a brainstorming, I'm kind of like you, like, especially with Chat, I think Chat brainstorms really well. I'll ask it to do, so let's use the kid example again, because you're probably not writing to kids, you're probably writing to parents of kids.
Exactly.
So I'll be like, and I tell people all the time, don't treat it like a tool, treat it like a toy. Because you'll be less serious about it. And that's when you'll find the really good stuff. So I'll do stuff like pretend you're an FBI profiler and give me a profile on a suburban mom with 3 kids, ages this, and this. And it'll like, give me a profile of her typical name. If I know the age, I'll put that in there because then it'll like it'll even do better. And then I'll say, okay, now write me a diary entry from the worst day of this mom's life. And it'll write, and I usually give it a word count, like 500 word diary entry as she just had the worst day of her life. Write the diary entry. Include things about the kids, what's going wrong, school, blah, 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 work, everything, husband. And then the next prompt, I'll be like, okay, now 90 days later, after she's bought our product, how has it changed her life for the better? And that kind of series of prompts there, I've gotten like some one-liners. Like I may take one line out of all the stuff it gives back. It almost always writes at least one-liner that is just drop dead perfect,
That's so
like
cool.
The whole thing's not perfect, but like it'll spit out the one-liner that I'm like, oh, I could write a whole email around that one line.
See, and I think this is such an example of like AI LLMs. They're not going to replace copywriters, and I feel nervous even saying that. But
yeah, I'm not sure about that. But
I still think that there's a place. I think there's a place for us now, definitely. Particularly, I mean,
I think now we're safe. I think 2 years. Who knows? Like
I think as long as we still have our hands in the customer research side of things, this is what you just described, Sean, is so cool. And immediately I was like, oh, that's such a good alternative or like option if you can't interview customers. Right. So like we're so big. Boxcar Agency, we use jobs to be done methodology to like do a lot of research we're a conversion copywriting agency, but we do so much sort of like pre-work to do the copywriting work in terms of helping our clients understand their customers. Often our clients are coming to us saying, we don't understand our customers anymore. Help us understand our customers. Right. Yeah. And so then we're running interviews with them using this jobs to be done methodology. And we would touch on the same sort of themes that you're talking about with the prompts with AI. But when you work with an early stage startup, they may not even have enough. They don't have customers. And so that's such a great alternative to being able to run interviews, and it's fast, right? Yeah. Sometimes they also don't have time. Like, okay, interviews can take up to 4 weeks to like get booked on the calendar, processed, et cetera, share insights, align, and then move forward. Right. Whereas that's a fast alternative for somebody who can't do that or can't invest in that level of work.
And the other challenge with customer interviews, and I think they're great, don't get me wrong, but I also think that a lot of times customers, just like focus groups, we've talked about it on the show, like they try to get the answer that you think they
want, that you want. Yeah.
And unless you're a really good interviewer and can kind of put people at ease and really get them to open up, which is its own skill set, even above and beyond copywriting, like that can be tough. But what I do is I use Fathom video as a note taker. Yep. And there's other options. So what I'll do is I'll just have a conversation with people, and then I'll take the transcript. And let's say I've had 4 interviews. I'll take those 4 transcripts. I'll upload that to Claude, say, analyze these in this market, and it will pull out insights that I completely missed. Like it'll pull out some commonalities and some things like that. So I think that's another way to use it as an analytical tool. And it just gives it more, more feedback to draw on. And then I can even say like, okay, based on what you see in these transcripts, give me more, go out and search your database and give me more information about this type of avatar. And it'll go pull out stuff that it would have taken me weeks to go research myself, and I'll do it in a minute, So that's kind of how I'm using it personally. And then once you give it all that, then it can do a pretty good job of putting together email sequences or whatever that I can then just go in and tweak, or I can just banter with it and be like, well, this is good, but I don't like this part.
Mhm.
And I've gotten pretty good at that. And it's really just like being super loose with it
Mhm.
and not having too much expectation from it that it's going to replace your work or like
Mhm.
do all the work for you.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what I've found anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah. That's
so I
cool.
love it. I love using it.
Yeah. I think it's helpful, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a helpful tool.
Certainly faster than going to the library and reading books.
I mean, it depends on which library you're going to, right? Is it the bar on campus, or
exactly. Yes.
is it
Those
the
are
actual
helpful.
library? I mean,
Yeah.
those are helpful. Those are helpful. No, it's true. It's true. But I will say the one thing, if we can dwell on AI a little bit longer, the one thing that I'm just thinking about another copywriter that I heard speaking about this, and it was exactly sort of encapsulated what I was thinking about it too, is the hard thing about AI right now and the way that the models work is that they can't create something that doesn't already exist, right? Like they generate from their data sets.
Right.
So it can't truly create something that doesn't exist, which means by extension that what it writes may be similar and or the same to the way a brand similar to your to the brand that you're writing for is communicating. And so there is this, I sometimes think about it though of like, okay, AI is saying this, ChatGPT is saying this, or Claude. I haven't tried Claude yet. I should. I need to try. I know. Now I'm like reignited. I need to go try Claude. If this is what the model is creating for me, then this might be what not to say. I don't know. Like I thought
I
that
see
was
what you're saying.
interesting way of sort of flipping around it. And so even in that, it's useful to see what it writes, right?
Yeah. I mean, I can see that, but the old idea that, a new idea is just two old ideas put together in a different way. Like,
Exactly.
and
It's
that's
not.
kind of what AI is doing, really.
I see both.
Yeah. So I mean, I agree. I can see both sides of that.
Yeah, I see both sides.
So here's another bullet you sent over. 3 ways businesses can prioritize understanding their customers and, in all caps, and ensure their customer insights get shared across the company.
Okay. So are we using surveys in automations? If we're not, why aren't we? Right? Like I feel like too many times we've come in to work with businesses and they're like, we have no customer data, or like we have this one random survey, and the first part of this is install surveys. They don't have to be fancy surveys. We're talking like 1 question surveys.
Yeah.
In specific moments where your prospect or buyer or customer, whatever you want to call them, right, in their life cycle, has just said yes to something, whether it's subscribing, is it a purchase, is it a trial, did they just cancel, right? Like all of these different moments are really important in understanding our customers, sort of getting a complete picture of them. There should be 1 question, maybe 2 question surveys, at 2 questions tops, at all of those different moments of time to understand what is going on in that customer's life that drove them to take that action now. What's going on now? So first step, get those surveys installed. I mean, I say automations because you can typically trigger off of that data if your data is being fed into your email marketing system.
Yeah.
Properly. It doesn't always do that. I've seen enough, I feel like there are many businesses that and Sean, you probably have seen this too, where they're like, our emails are a mess. Like our email system is a mess. And you're like, every business's email system is a mess. So you're not special. We love you, right? Like we love you, but you're not special. They're all messy. So you can take solace in that. Anyways, assuming that you have the data there, you can fire an email off of that. But if they're landing on a landing page, install the type form right there in the landing page, if it makes sense to do so, right? If they're landing on a thank you page, I say Typeform, but any survey
Right.
tool will do. I just have a preference for Typeform.
Yeah.
So that's collecting the data. But then there's this second part of like, we have to share the data out. Data that's sitting in your survey tool is, if nobody's using it, then that's just as bad. So
I love that idea. Like, if somebody just bought on the thank you page, a one question, what was the number one reason you purchased, with open-ended text?
Yes.
Like, people are going to answer that. Like,
yes.
At least 50%, I would bet, of people would answer that.
Yeah.
And if it's open-ended and not multiple choice of what you think they should say,
Yes.
like, I think that's a whole nother mistake.
Yes. That is exactly.
It's kind of like the unsubscribe button, and it gives the default list. Like, just like, if you really want that information, ask, why did you unsubscribe? Open field, and people will tell you.
They sure will.
And you'll get some good stuff, like really good stuff. But if you give them multiple choice, they're just going to pick the top one and move on with their day.
Totally.
But yeah, I love that. Like, at all those critical points you mentioned, especially if they're leaving you, I think that's worth more, I think, than even why they buy.
Yes. Yes, because you have some control over that, right? You can take that intel and then go, okay. This is where we start to get to the point of making sure that the information is shared across departments. Silos are the silent killers of businesses. Maybe. Yeah. I think there are a lot of silent killers of businesses, but silos between your different departments, marketing and sales, man, those silos are so siloed. Sometimes I've seen product siloed from marketing, which is like, what?
Yeah.
We're all playing on the same team here, trying to reach the same goals for the business. I understand why the departments exist, but we need to have cross-functional communication here. But when we go to like the churn survey, the cancellation survey, for example, you might get insight. You will probably get insights there that will help you shape your product map, right? Like, what features are we releasing? You might also decide, okay, actually something's going on with our pricing strategy, and we might need to revise our pricing strategy to better suit the way that our customers want to buy from us. There's a lot of value. Those are just two examples of so many insights that can come out of surveys that can shape the way that you do business.
That silo thing is so true. I can honestly say it's crazy, and it drives me nuts see that, because sales and marketing people should be always working hand in hand, but for whatever reason, there is a disconnect. And I've seen it time and time again. Salespeople should be feeding marketing people all sorts of information, because they're on the front line. They're dealing with the customers. But
spoken like a true salesman, Jonathan.
Absolutely. And it's but I understand the marketing side of it too.
Right.
I've been in the marketing side to understand that, guys, you guys got to work together. And there should not be this like competitive thing going back and forth. Like, it's like the marketing team should be very like open to whatever the sales team says, and vice versa.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
They should be working hand in hand, but for whatever reason, sometimes there's just like, they're working against each other so many times. But
I think that sometimes comes from the way that goals are set for the departments, right? I feel like sometimes it's a byproduct of the wrong goals, because I totally agree with you. Marketing, I don't know. This might be a bit of marketing is there. Especially when you have a sales team in the business. I'm thinking again about B2B companies that are either operating on a sales-led model or a hybrid model where they have PLG, but then they also have this whole like enterprise wing where they have their sales team really working. Like, marketing, we're there to support sales. Like, the whole company wins when those big enterprise accounts are being closed. And what can marketing do to make that easier for sales? So many things. And yet it is so rare, it seems, that marketing actually goes and talks to sales.
Yeah, marketing really should be renamed pre-sales.
Yes. Yes.
Because that's actually what it is, right?
Yes.
It's like, and I think if you think of it from that standpoint, that marketing is actually pre-sales and sales is sales, it's you see the connection a lot more. Like how many objections can you overcome in the marketing process instead of the sales closing process? That's just, it's night and day, the difference. All right. Last thing. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say so many objections, right, that you can overcome. But I know, like, last thing, I know we're wrapping up. We're getting to the end of the call. Yeah.
Case studies too. And surveys are good, case studies. But, I always found, what I've always found, that case studies always originate from the salespeople, because they feed that information to marketing and say, okay, here's how XYZ product was applied to this certain application. And I'm talking mostly, this is like, this is from industrial experience or in manufacturing, is like salespeople they put together the case study information, and then they say, here's how it worked. And they're like, I'm going to give this to you, and then you should be creating a case study that you can feed back to me. And I can use that as a marketing tool, right? And just like tell the story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we should be working hand in hand. So
yes,
sales enablement copy.
Yes,
exactly.
Which is kind of a new and upcoming copywriting niche, actually.
Is it?
Right.
It just feels like the thing that we should be doing this whole time.
I know, but it's kind of its own little world. All right. So, Carolyn, I know you said this could be its own episode, but I wanted to at least touch on it in however long it takes.
Okay.
So segmentation. So you said the simple alternative to segmentation that allows businesses to speak to multiple audiences with one message, that really interests me. So I'm glad that we saved, like 2 or 3 minutes for that.
Whew. Okay. 2 or 3 minutes.
You can go
yeah. So this
your timer.
I know, set my timer. So this particular approach, so we call it the hybrid one reader. And the way that I typically explain it is, you can think this all stems from the jobs to be done methodology, right? Like, people don't buy something because they're 40 and male and live in New York. They are buying something for a specific reason to accomplish something specific in their life. Often, the way that businesses define their personas is around demographics rather than the actual reason why somebody is buying, which means that there are typically similarities between the sort of standard personas that we have defined, right? So the way that this process sort of works is, if we were to think about them as a Venn diagram, let's just take let's say we have a business with 2 personas that are predefined. Put them into a Venn diagram, that shared space in the center, that is the similarity. And this is like its own stand-in reader or stand-in one reader that you can use. I mean, we've used this technique. It's particularly helpful for homepages where you're kind of having to try to write for everybody anyways. There are all different types of traffic landing on homepages, but we've also used it on landing pages where the business can't tightly control the traffic. So in whatever way they're sort of driving traffic to that page, whether it's specific keyword that is not persona specific, or if it's a referral partner sort of like traffic stream, again, that they can't totally they know that there's a mix of traffic happening there. This is where you can use this particular approach. And so really what you're doing is looking at, okay, why does this sort of shared space in the persona, like what are the commonalities? What are the shared desired outcomes that they're trying to accomplish? What are the shared objections to taking that next step with you? What does their buying journey look like, sort of specifically when they're going through the process of making the decision to buy a product like yours? It's all this sort of process of figuring out that shared commonality and then using, okay, this is what that shared persona looks like. Now we can define messages around these desired outcomes, and you'll ignore the things that are different about them.
Yeah.
it's a little bit abstract, I think, when we explain it in this way, but
I think a good example so two ideas came to mind as you were talking of big brands that would need to use something like this. Best Buy comes to mind, right? Because they've got, they're selling refrigerators to laptops to TVs to whatever. But there is a commonality. Like, people want to go see and touch, and they have questions. Like, there is an overlap there where they're not quite sure about the want. So they don't want to go to Amazon because they don't know exactly what the refresh rate is on a TV, or they want to, that kind of stuff. They want to talk to somebody, which is why Best Buy is known as Amazon's showroom. But, Best Buy could capitalize on that, and like really play into that. And then with a little sales training on the floor, they could actually close the people that come in. So yeah, I could see that. And then Target was the other one. It's like they sell everything. But why is someone choosing that over Amazon? Again, they're probably tactile people. They're probably, they want to get out of the house. Could be a lot of things, but there are some commonalities of why, 6 different types of people, a boomer, a Gen Z, Gen X, like they're all, go into Target for different reasons. But then there's some similar reasons why they want to go too. Is that
exactly? Yeah, that's kind of it, right? It's a different way of looking at similarities, right? Like, that's like a similarity in the way that they want to buy, which is totally this right idea, right? It's like when I won't go into the whole jobs to be done mapping and methodology. It's a whole thing in and of itself. Like I said, it's really its own podcast, but its own episode. But this can also apply if if you are a brand that has one product, but if we're thinking about it from a sale, like the, demographics based approach to defining your personas, you might be looking at a small business. So it's maybe like 3 people in that business, and they want to buy this particular product because they want to look more professional, and like they have their can I swear on this? Can I swear? They want to look like they have their shit together. And then, but this brand might also be trying to shift upstream, right? And they want to attract bigger businesses. They're operating on, this would be a classic example of somebody that's probably operating on a hybrid model where they have their sales team that's working on like bigger accounts, right? Mid-market and enterprise level accounts. And if they're like, okay, the goal is move upstream so that we can attract bigger accounts, but we have this page that also happens to have these small businesses landing on it. How do we make sure that we show the mid-market, the enterprise business, that this is for them without sort of like dissuading that small business buyer? And so then it's where we go, okay, beyond the demographics of like these different types of buyers, what are they actually trying to do with this product? What are they actually trying to do? Is it a remote team? Are they all remote teams and they want this particular product because it will allow them to work like they're in the same office when they're not, right? Is that the commonality? Because then that's an idea that we can turn into a message that speaks to speaks across the audiences, basically. Yeah. It works.
Like that. So it's even different than, because there's demographics, there's psychographics. So it's even different than psychographics. It's really like, what's the common solution they're looking for, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Desired outcome. Yeah. And like sometimes that's sort of a function. I just described what I would consider a functional desired outcome. Like, what are we actually trying to do here? Yeah. Sort of like practically nuts and bolts style. But then, you could also have a more probably, psychological reason why you're buying something, right? Sometimes often we're buying, we rationalize our our buying decisions, even though they're largely emotional decisions. You might be buying something because you are looking for confidence, and this particular product is going to give you the confidence to do X, Y, or Z, right? You might be buying something because it will make you look good to your boss, right? Like these are all different. Those are all sort of different shades of jobs to be done, right? We have functional, we have emotional, we have social jobs to be done. Yeah. So it depends. It just depends on, like I said, it's own
fun.
episode.
Yeah, I know. I love this because it's always like you can come up with all sorts of new problems out there that you can solve with a product that's been around. Like, all of that feedback, you can create a whole new niche or a whole new audience based off of that. Sean and I've talked about this on past episodes where, common products that are out there like Listerine and Febreze were never intended for what they're used for today. Right. I mean, so Febreze was meant for one thing, but it actually ended up being something completely different.
You can just do like the pharmaceutical industry and just make up disorders.
Halitosis. Yeah, it's like halitosis.
Did you know you had a disorder? Because before it wasn't a disorder, but we need to sell some drugs, so now it's a disorder.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, that's breakfast, right? Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That's a made-up marketing term. Like that's not true. There's no truth in that whatsoever. Like, in fact, it's probably better if you don't eat breakfast a lot of times. But here we are. We have generations that believe you got to eat a breakfast.
That's right.
Complete part of this nutritious breakfast. It has 46 plates on it on the back of the
greeting
cereal
card
box.
Industry. I mean, it's like Mother's Day. I mean, we could do a whole segment on the greeting card industry.
Yeah, Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, like
I've
been married 30 years and we've like given up on greeting cards. We're like, it's a gimmick. Like
it's a cash grab, man. Have you seen? I mean, maybe you haven't seen the prices of
they're like $7-8 for greeting cards now. It's ridiculous.
Because you're shamed if you go to the 99-cent section now, right? You got to go to the
dollar store,
the $3, $5
Dollar Tree greeting cards now. Yep.
Oh God,
absolutely. Yep. Why did you give me a Mother's Day card on our anniversary? Well, it was on sale.
Right.
It's like, it doesn't matter. You're going to throw it away in 3 days anyway. Like, who cares?
This is my challenge with greeting cards is the waste that comes from them. But that's
funny.
Yeah.
You were talking about Chat GPT earlier. One thing I love to do with Chat GPT is anything that I think would make a good Seinfeld episode. I will plug into Chat GPT and say, write me a Seinfeld episode about throwing away birthday cards. Because like that's such a Seinfeld thing, right? Like how many days do I have to wait to throw away a birthday card?
Yep.
Like you can see George and Jerry like having that conversation. Like, I don't know. Is it 3 days? Is it 7 days? Like, I don't know. What if they come over and the card's not there? Like,
I mean, that's
how much
worry.
writing? How much writing? Like how much they write inside the card? That plays a big part of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah.
And then Kramer comes in and is like, I throw them away on day one. I don't need it.
Don't need it.
That on my life. So, all right. Well, Carolyn, this has been fun. How do people find out more about you? I've got all your websites pulled up. So which one do you want me to pull up?
So I think you can find me in a couple different places, right? So you can find me on Boxcar Agency. I mean, that's our agency. Yep, there it is. That's our agency website. If you want to hear from me specifically, like directly, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn or
boom.
Exactly.
Oh, there's a message from Kristen to me. Oops.
Yeah.
There we are.
Yeah, exactly. So / Carolyn Beaudoin, my name. Or you can also check out the weekly newsletter, which is Why Words Win. You can see the psychology. Basically, every week I'm looking at a subject line and preview or a crosshead or a headline, and we're kind of like unpacking the why behind the word. So we're looking at the psychology behind why these words actually work. You walk away with at least one actionable tip to incorporate in your copy, boost conversions. And that happens in a very nice condensed read of just 5 minutes.
Did you say crosshead?
Yeah. So
What
it's
is
like
that? I've never heard that term.
So crosshead is it might be called a headline. You might call it a headline down the page under the hero, but it's taking that it's an H2 or maybe sometimes an
Okay.
H3. Yeah.
Oh, I just call all those subheadlines, but I guess
There you go. I mean, it's potatoes, tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
Potatoes doesn't work, but tomatoes,
No.
works.
Yes.
Process,
Let's just call the whole thing off.
Yeah.
Tomatoes. Let's just call the whole thing off.
Exactly.
All right. So yeah, I'm going to sign up for that. I was about to sign up live, but I was like, I don't want to put my email on YouTube. So I will sign up for Why Words Win. That sounds like a fun
that's
read.
cool. I love
That
that
is
title.
Thank you.
Very simple. Me, like if I launch a newsletter, I'm like how to do everything all at once. It's kind of the title of my newsletter because I just want to cover everything every week. That is like my Achilles heel is niching is like my Achilles heel. I just can't do it. I don't know why. It's just the way I'm wired. So
I think that's fair though. I mean, I can tell you that I thought long and hard before this newsletter was launched. There was a period of time where I was sort of
morning.
I was going to say, stewing, brewing. I don't know,
Let's be honest, it is morning. You're like, oh, I can't do it all.
Probably.
I'm so
honestly.
talented and nobody knows. And yet, yeah. So
yeah,
I think that's why I don't like to niche because I want people to know I'm good at everything, and whatever. So.
What's the old saying? If you're good at everything, you're good at nothing, right?
That's just not true.
I think somebody who is only good at one thing,
exactly,
probably, yeah.
What's like the master? What's the jack of all trades, master of none? That's only half the quote. There's another half to that quote.
Yeah,
go look it up. It's not what you think it is. So they're actually praising the master of all, not they're actually praising the jack of all trades in that quote. If you go look up the rest of the quote. So anyway, well, Carolyn, this has been fun. Hope it's been fun for you as well.
Sure has.
Cool. Well, we're going to put you back in the green room as we
Did you
wrap
finish
up.
off the beer? Did you finish it?
No. Like I said, nervous. I have about half my beer left. Yeah.
Oh, do you want to just chug it right?
No.
Well, that's good. I mean, says a lot for self-awareness, knowing that, you've set your limits. So unfortunately, I didn't.
Almost.
We don't do that. We just keep drinking until the show's over.
I mean, I think you're more practiced, right? It's not every day that
Absolutely.
I get to come on a podcast and
we got 5 years of practice of drinking while podcasting.
Exactly.
So.
I just need to practice, right? Every Friday, 4:00, just like
that's it.
Crack a beer and
that's right.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So visit Carolyn at Why Words Win or Boxcar Agency or on her LinkedIn. Hound her, harass her, whatever you need to do to hire her and get better email copy, better segmentation, all the things. So Carolyn, we're going to put you back in the green room. We'll check with you in just a second while we wrap up. Take about 30 or 60 seconds. Thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me.
All right.
Nope.
Oh, we both hit the button.
That was good.
Yeah.
It's very good.
It's nice to have guests that can actually hold their own.
Absolutely.
She did a good job.
Carry the bucket.
Yes.
Carry the bucket while we drink beer. I love it.
Or like David Goggins, carry the boats. Like if you want to be a little bit more intense about it, like,
yeah,
who's going to carry the boats? Carolyn's going to carry the boats. While we drink, she'll carry the boat. So.
Oh, I just love it. I've been sitting here. I got a legal pad, just taking notes, man. I love it. Just taking notes, taking it all in.
Exactly. Yeah. I've got some ideas too. So, all right. Well, I'll let you wrap it up.
What episode number is this?
365, I think.
There you go. That sounds close. We'll say 365. To all of our listeners, thanks for watching. You can find this 365 over at Persuasion by the Pint. You can find us on all of your platforms, Spotify, iTunes, you name it. Leave us 5 stars. Thanks again to Carolyn. And we will have links on our show page at 365 where you can find out more about her. And I will be signing up for Why Words Win. I love that title, by the way. So
Yeah.
good stuff. We'll see you.
See ya.